Without really going into too much detail, I wanted to maybe just highlight a few things that we are doing from the Energy Center and from the CSIR perspective. What you see here is a brief slide that I've sort of created in an attempt to give you a picture of the activities that are currently ongoing at the CSIR. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. I've got a few themes. One, I'd like to take you through the SA landscape, and this sort of gives you a picture of the challenges that we are facing in the country. It gives you a picture of what are those challenges, and potentially with challenges we always have opportunities, right? And it sort of starts painting the picture of those opportunities. And then I'd like to also take you further to the second part, which is basically the research, development and innovation flagship programs that are currently existing in the country, largely driven by the Department of Science and Innovation. Now, there's about 4 of those flagship programs, and in the energy space, from the CSR point of view, we've got a focus in about 2 of those, and I think you will see some of the activities that we're doing in that space. And to that point, we'll then move to the next point of the agenda, which is basically the contribution from those flagships. Maybe just to give you an overview in terms of those flagships, there's 4. Number 1 is a renewable bespoke program, which seeks to understand the renewable potential that the country has. And while we may not be involved in that process of running that flagship, but through the work that we do from the CSR, we've contributed a lot in that. And I think I'll show you what we've done with the Wind Atlas of South Africa and how we continue to innovate in that space. And then the second component is around the hydrogen. And most of you may have seen the Hydrogen Society roadmap that the DSI implemented or published a while ago, 2022. And from that point, we are now taking that hydrogen roadmap into different programs. And from the CSIR, we are focusing on hydrogen infrastructure. What is that? Simple. Hydrogen infrastructure looks at when we deploy hydrogen for the country, what type of infrastructure is necessary that will enable other sectors to benefit from that. For example, we've got a thriving mining sector, and within the hydrogen sector, we know that PGM plays a critical part. So that program looks into that and looks also into the storage components that we need to sort of help with the hydrogen deployment. The other 2 is energy storage, and within the energy storage, there's a consortium, and we are in the process of developing batteries, helping the country with stationary applications as well as mobility, and that is done across different institutions, CSIR, the other universities that are out there, as well as the nuclear NEXA, which is basically the Council for Nuclear Energy. And then obviously the last point would be the key takeaways. So where are we? I actually don't want to labor much onto this point, largely because I felt that Chairman really highlighted that. So I would not want to repeat the points that he's already done, because the themes are very simple. The drivers are clear, right? We have a transition that we have to achieve. And to that end, we need to think about innovative way to decarbonize our energy sector. And we also know clearly that the electricity sector is one of the highest emitting sector in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions. And now that is based on the 2022 data. And clearly there's a need for us to come up with innovative solutions to that end. And the issue around sustainability as we transition with that is also critical, right? Same applies with the technology. But what is important, and what I also want to bring your attention to, is some of the key outputs that we've sort of achieved to date with the work that we're doing. Particularly, if you can see there, you can see the map of South Africa. Now, what you are seeing there is a program that was started back in 2016, actually even before then. But what is important to note is this was one of the key anchors to unlock the whole wind industry in the country. And I'm confident to say that largely because with mapping the wind resource across the country, we're able to provide strategic input to inform national policy to say that this is the wind potential that we have in the country. But over and above that, this same information was used by developers to further narrow down their interest in respective sites. Now, the work that is now currently ongoing with that is pertaining to, now that we've done the coastal region, how does the inland look like, right? We all know that the previous bid window did not really materialize in terms of the wind production of wind energy that we could actually procure from the previous window. And we are now looking at understanding the profile in the regions such as Mpumalanga, right? So this is some of the work that we are doing in that space. Again, I will not dwell on this, largely because you have seen and you have heard from the chairman really highlighting some of the challenges. But some of the things that I probably want to maybe just highlight to you, nominal installed capacity 54 gigs and largely focused on coal. And there's a need for us to be innovative. And from an external point of view, we've got a number of challenges that we are facing to decarbonize the electricity sector, largely because it's one of the key areas that is contributing to the emissions. And secondly, we've got NDCs, national determined contributions that we want to achieve by 2030, very ambitious targets around the range of 420 to 350. Now, looking at that tells you that we need to change the ways in which we do things. But coupled to that also, we know that there's a potential to decommission over 12 gigawatts of existing coal fleet. Now, that is quite an enormous amount of power that we need to decommission to achieve some of our targets. And this ultimately, if you look at some of the key things that we saw from that, is there has been a negative technology balance of payment, largely due to the fact that we've been importing a lot of lithium-ion batteries to obviously overcome the challenges around load shedding. We've also had to import a number of solar panels, and we've also had to import all these other components that sort of help us to support that. So these are some of the things that we are seeing. And to that end, from the CSIR point of view, we're always looking at how do we enable a capable state with the resources and the innovation that we're doing to support these issues. And we've also seen some of the interesting things around the increase in small-scale embedded generation that are sort of moving forward. We are also faced with another challenge that we've seen, and again, this comes from Eskom. Eskom is the knowledge hub in terms of the transmission. What I want to maybe just highlight from this slide is something that is extremely important, and I've mentioned in the previous point that, there's a good 10 gigawatt that needs to be decommissioned. And if you look at the country's map, on the one end, we've got abundance of renewable resource, right, which is basically the southeastern part of the country. But on the other end, you also have a concentration of existing thermal power plants, and most of those thermal power plants are likely to be decommissioned very soon. Now, from a technical point of view, what does that mean? It means that there are challenges in terms of operating a grid with a very high share of variable renewable energy sources. There are challenges in terms of the inertia and the stability aspect of it. So the solutions that we are developing around this from the energy perspective, and to support obviously Eskom, because we work very closely with Eskom on most of these things, is around creating inertia tools to enable running systems such as that, to ultimately support that, to support the operation of a system that is high with grid. But on the other hand, one thing that we need to highlight is, I've shown you all these challenges that are out there. There are programs, some from government and also some from funders that also want to solve similar issues that we are facing. What I'm just highlighting to you at the moment is the RDI plans, or what we call research, development, innovation plans within the research space, right? One, which I've already highlighted, is around renewable energy hubs and spokes, and that focuses on quantifying the renewable energy. And one of the examples that I've shown you is quantifying the wind of the country, then the hydrogen, and I've also highlighted some of the things, and energy storage. And quite recently, we went to an event where we're showcasing the carbon capture and storage that we are utilizing together with existing thermal power plants. Now, that is a technology that ultimately unlocks a lot of other opportunities. So, just a fast forward step. You've seen what we are doing on the onshore wind, but the same amount of work we're also doing it on the offshore. South Africa has abundance of offshore wind. And as you can see there, I've just given you a map of what that offshore wind looks like. What we are currently doing with our partners is to understand the potential that we have in the country that can ultimately unlock this hydrogen economy that I've been talking about, right? Hydrogen economy largely because we want to export hydrogen so that we can better position ourselves as one of the key players in the hydrogen economy, but also to circumvent the issues of having, we've got a lot of hard to abate sectors. So that already helps us with that. Now, for export purposes, it is ideal that the hydrogen need to be produced close to the coast. And that ultimately leads to the next solution. How does our wind profile look like in the country? And this is some of the work that we're doing. And the initial work would ultimately give us a report of the potential, and thereafter we'll follow similar steps with measurement campaigns that would ultimately unlock more opportunities in the hydrogen economy. This is one of the, I like showing this because the work that we do comes in so many ways. And what you are seeing here is the renewable energy resource largely for one part, which is decision support purposes. And I did highlight that hydrogen is the economy of the future. And this is a study that we conducted together with other partners to understand what is the potential for exporting hydrogen in the country. And this is one of the Saldanha Bay. And you can see through the collaboration from different areas within the CSIR, we're able to quantify where, if we want to create a power plant, how can we go about doing that? So this is one of those nice examples that I'd like to show. And the next slide actually speaks to the other level of decision support that we do. For us to be competitive in the hydrogen economy, there's a number of things that we need to do. We need to have cheap electricity. We also need to have infrastructure supporting that, right? And over and above that, we also have to have the supporting infrastructure for producing that hydrogen. Now, we did a number of studies to understand what would be the ideal way of doing that, ultimately to enable policy and support this hydrogen economy. Number one, key things that came from that study is that you need to oversize your water production. So basically you need seawater, and therefore you need to oversize your electrolyzers so that you are able to break that down hydrogen, and then excess water can ultimately be used for agricultural purposes and also support the country, because we are a water scarce country. But over and above that, one thing that we've also highlighted and also noted from that is that hydrogen has a potential to unlock and support the current energy crisis, largely because for hydrogen to make sense at the least cost, we need to oversize some of these renewable energy power plants. And oversizing them means that the levelized cost would ultimately go down, and excess energy can then be transferred back to the grid. And therefore, you are actually making money both ways. Number one, on the hydrogen. Number two, on selling energy to the grid. So this is that study that was sort of helping to unlock and understand that what can be done to unlock this hydrogen economy in the country. Now, from the lab point of view, there's also another part that is always important to highlight. When we do technology, it's always important to de-risk it. And to that end, de-risking it means that we need to invest in the inception, in the early stages of these hydrogen technology. What you are seeing here is the application of captured CO2 combined with hydrogen to ultimately bring out derivatives, or your sustainable aviation fuels, derivatives that can come from that. And we have done this type of demonstration plant to show that the concept works. But over and above that, we have created a catalyst to support this type of production. And the next step is now to test it on a large scale. Now, testing it on a large scale would essentially prove that the work that we are doing works, and ultimately de-risking the technology and making sure that it can be deployed at scale. This slide, I don't like to really go much on it, but what it tries to show is CSIR in the entire energy value chain, and particularly in the hydrogen economy, it's got footprint. For example, in the water space, I've already highlighted, we have AMD, and given the fact that the country does not have adequate amount of water, we have solutions that supports this water, the water solutions. And in the infrastructure component or the grid component, we also have capabilities, and we're continuously helping and ultimately understanding how this can unlock the whole economy. And then I've already shown you the opportunities within the renewable energy space and what we are doing. And us also when it comes to electrolysis and fuel cells, through the different HISA programs, we are working on that. And from the compression and storage aspect of it, we've done a number of storage. And there's all these other applications that we are busy with. And this essentially gives you different technology takes that we are developing within the CSIR to support the hydrogen economy. Then what are the key takeaways? The work that we do from the CSIR point of view focuses on a number of things. Number one, how do we enable and support policymakers to make the best decision to ensure that we've got a capable state, right? And that is done through assessing different technologies at a very early age and ultimately recommending what needs to be done from that point of view. A simple example that we've done, that we have done from the soft innovation point of view, it's the Wind Atlas of South Africa, and now we are looking on the offshore. On the other hand, we want to mitigate investment risk, so that's why we demonstrate these plans. And from demonstrating these plans, we are also able to understand the nitty-gritties of those plans, and ultimately we are able to deploy them at scale. And then obviously one last point that I'd like maybe just to touch briefly on is the standardization. Now, as these new technologies are coming to the market, there needs to be standards. And we as a CSIR are sitting in the forefront of advising and coming up with standardization of enabling this hydrogen economy in the future. Thank you very much.